The Prince and Princess of Pot, Marc and Jody Emery, will be soon reunited after nearly 5 years apart. The marijuana advocate has been serving a prison sentence in the U.S. In 2009, he pleaded guilty to selling marijuana seeds across the border. His sentence ends today, and tomorrow he begins the process of coming home. Meantime, his wife Jody has been running their magazine and store since his arrest and has remained an outspoken advocate for the legalization of marijuana. Jody Emery joins us now from Vancouver. Jody, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
You have called Marc a political prisoner. Why?
When Marc was arrested in 2005 by U.S. agents here in Canada, the DEA of America said it was all about his legalization funding. We have the press release and DEA file that show they traced all the money and proved that it was given to political groups, court cases, ballot initiatives. So they admitted on the day of his arrest that it was meant to be a significant blow to legalization movement, and they are actually the ones who have suffered the significant blow now.
So much has changed in the 5 years since Marc went into prison. We were talking a little bit yesterday about how it became legal to sell marijuana in Washington state. Several states have legalized it. What do you make of this? I imagine you feel somewhat optimistic by this in your view.
So we've seen a lot of positive reform because Marc sent them millions of dollars in seeds to make it happen. And we even worked with the activists in Colorado and Marc's own prosecutor in Washington state to legalize marijuana in those states to set an example. And I can see Washington from my window. I see Mount Baker, so I'm a little envious they get to enjoy it down there. But it's also perfectly fitting that the first day of marijuana sales by a state government happens in the state Marc was extradited to. When he's finishing up his sentence.
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What a celebration day today. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Marc Emery getting out. He's out of prison now.
He was arrested by the DEA for being a very strong voice in the marijuana legalization movement.
Apparently, he was like the most dangerous guy to the DEA that existed. Way to go, another Canadian. Woohoo!
However, since he got put away by the American administration, a lot has changed, especially in Washington and Colorado. In Washington, recently, pot sales just became legal, and they just started selling them in that state.
So you want to check this out.
Washington state is officially getting ready for legal marijuana, becoming the second U.S. state to legalize a substance for adults. Sales of cannabis started in 24 locations around the state yesterday. Colorado legalized marijuana on January 1st, and sales there were strong, bringing tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue into the state. Similar sales are expected in the Evergreen state, possibly leading to shortages of cannabis. In the short term, this could raise prices at the retail outlets until producers are able to meet demand. In Colorado, prices for an ounce of marijuana were over $300 in the first few days of legalization. Now that same amount of high-quality cannabis can be purchased for as little as $85. One unexpected result of legalized cannabis in Colorado has been the rise in popularity of food products made with marijuana. Medical marijuana patients tend to buy raw buds and hash instead of products meant for eating. But in Colorado, demand for foods containing cannabis is skyrocketing, leading to marijuana chocolates, energy drinks, and even salad dressings. Mason Tvert from the Marijuana Policy Project said this is a major shift in public policy, so it is not going to be perfect at first. Like with alcohol, it will take some time to determine which regulations work and which do not. The first sting operation in Colorado, trying to find stores selling to minors, found around 100% compliance rate with state and local laws. Lawmakers in Olympia expect to collect $190 million in tax revenue for marijuana in the next 4 years.
So, Washington.
Yeah, I think they had a real run on stock on the first day it went on sale. I believe that they actually ran out of stock.
Yes, they had a problem keeping those store shelves full. And that's kind of a sign of the times. Of course, Colorado reporting an exceptionally large amount of tax dollars being raised that can go into healthcare, maybe better roads, infrastructure, who knows?
But attitudes towards cannabis are changing across the board, and all kinds of new problems are cropping up with the legalization process, like banks making loans to marijuana businesses and getting insurance to cover your stock.
Of course, we have a clip about this. It's the insurance industry. Check this out.
Pot dealers of yore never had to worry about this, but here it is. Even in states where selling marijuana is legal, pot retailers are finding they can't get standard issue business insurance. Big insurance companies aren't writing policies because the category is so new it's hard to price the risk. Carol Walker, executive director of the Rocky Mountain Insurance Information Association, told the Denver Business Journal. The fact also remains that the sale and distribution of marijuana remains illegal under federal law, which puts insurers in a tricky spot. Professionals with ties to the marijuana field, doctors, lawyers, accountants among them, have been threatened with license revocation despite operating within the bounds of their own state laws. Federal prosecutors continue to go after growers and dispensaries in the 23 states where medical marijuana is legal.
So, of course, the insurance companies are becoming a pain.
Of course, because, well, they don't have any guidelines to go with this new industry, really.
Yeah, and maybe they should have been looking into that because they knew the need was coming up. We're going to be monitoring this on the Canadian side. Of course, we're getting a lot of information, positive information, about the positive effects of legalization in Washington and Colorado. There's another state, right? Is there?
That's the two so far. They're apparently looking for decriminalization in D.C. as well.
Yeah, that would be interesting. See how that one works out. Okay.
Apparently, law enforcement is also being affected by the new paradigm.
Yes.
And the FBI, in its search in the war on terror, and cyber terror especially, is looking for new recruits. However, a lot of them can't pass the urine test. So they're changing their rules accordingly.
So you see an acceptance and a major tolerance occurring in Washington, occurring in Colorado, but we never thought we'd be running a clip like this. Check this out.
The next time you encounter an FBI agent, he may have marijuana in his system. That's right, the Federal Bureau of Investigation is now telling potential recruits to not let a history of marijuana smoking keep them from applying for a job. The current FBI regulations prohibit hiring applicants who have smoked cannabis in the last 3 years, but the agency found that many of the smartest, most talented people in the market are regular smokers. James Comey, the director of the FBI, said, quote, "I have to hire a great workforce to compete with those cyber criminals, and some of those kids want to smoke weed on the way to the interview." Cybersecurity is a pressing problem right now for the FBI, and the restriction against marijuana use made hiring hackers and computer programmers very difficult. The Bureau is involved in major efforts against Chinese hackers and malware infecting large numbers of computers worldwide. The Bureau is budgeted to hire as many as 2,000 additional agents this year, and many of those new hires will be in cybersecurity. Comey stated that his agency is, quote, grappling with the question right now of how to hire talented workers who do not smoke marijuana. The announcement was made on May 20th at a conference in New York City, and at the event, an audience member asked the director about a friend of his who wanted to apply but could not pass the current prohibition. He stated that he should go ahead and apply anyway. Medical marijuana is now legal in 21 states and approved for recreational use in 2 others.
The FBI, man, come on.
It's okay to smoke weed and work for the FBI.
You know that they got problem recruiting when? At any rate, it's the American situation that we're really taking a look at right now. And the ramifications of what happened in Colorado and Washington are resonating right through to the DEA.
As well as the fact that most states now allow medical marijuana to be sold within their borders.
We have 2 quick clips for you, one from the DEA and one from the FDA.
The House of Representatives in Washington passed a resolution that would end all funding for federal raids on legal medical marijuana dispensaries. The move came as an amendment to a little-noticed bill sponsored by Sam Farr, a Democrat, and Republican Dana Rohrabacher, both from California. It passed on a vote of 219 to 189. Most Democrats voted in favor of the amendment, with the majority of Republicans opposed. With 49 members of the GOP favoring the move, it passed the full House. This is the first time the lower house of Congress has ever approved such a measure. The original bill provides funding to several government agencies, including the Justice Department. That agency enforces federal marijuana prohibition in states that have legalized the natural medicine. Dan Riffle, the Marijuana Policy Project, told the press, quote, "Congress is officially pulling out of the war on medical marijuana patients and providers. Federal tax dollars will no longer be wasted arresting seriously ill medical marijuana patients and those who provide to them. There are still several hurdles to be overcome before the spigot of federal dollars for such raids is shut off. The spending bill will need to clear the democratically controlled Senate, which would need to be signed by the president. This amendment may signal a change in worldview from federal lawmakers concerning cannabis. As Rohrabacher told Congress, quote, "If a doctor feels that he needs to prescribe something to alleviate that suffering, it is immoral for this government to get in the way." The Food and Drug Administration will review the status of cannabis as a Schedule I drug. A request for a review was filed with the agency by the Drug Enforcement Administration. The FDA still considers cannabis to have no medical benefit. However, 23 states now have legalized medical marijuana, and 2 states have legalized the substance for recreational use. Reclassification of cannabis could help reconcile federal and state laws and reapportion funding to other programs. Schedule I drugs carry the greatest penalties for use and possession. Medical research on these substances is also tightly regulated. Other Schedule I drugs on the federal list include heroin and LSD. The FDA considered rescheduling cannabis in 2001 and 2006. Both of those times, the agency chose to maintain current policies. Current polls now show a majority of Americans now support the full legalization of cannabis. Medical marijuana and decriminalization enjoy even higher approval levels from the general public. The agency now states on their website that they are aware that there is considerable interest in its use to attempt to treat a number of medical conditions. John Mica, a Republican representative from Florida, said that rescheduling of cannabis would have big implications. Announcement of the review was made in a recent written comment to Congress by Douglas Throckmorton of the FDA. And the agency will consult with the Department of Health and Human Services as well as the National Institutes of Health before making their recommendation. There was no timetable given for the decision process.
So it's the DEA and the FDA that are both starting to grow up.
That's right. The DEA is being told to no longer raid medical marijuana facilities.
You know, because they got to grow up.
And the FDA is deciding whether or not they're going to reschedule marijuana on their dangerosity index.
Right on. You know, when Shakespeare didn't have the word, he just made it up. We didn't really figure that one out until we started shooting this show. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
On the cool green screen on the green day, as we take a look at some major amounts of logic on the American side of the marijuana debate.
And of course, we'll be back to talk to you about the banking industry and the illogic that exists there.
And of course, we're going to talk about the illogic with the Conservative Party flip-flopping on the marijuana debate. I continue to be Darren Howard.
And I continue to be Robert Nisbet.
We're here for you for sure. Make sure you stay tuned. We've got some major specials coming up. We're going to be talking about positivity and, yes,
The banks.
We'll be back after this lack of messages.
Oil and slave labor. These two wonderful industries make modern life a breeze. And what this fine little filly doesn't realize is that her chic accessories and stunning appearance come from oil and slave labor.
Huh?
That's right, classy lassie. Everything from your thong to your nail polish, your smartphone to your eyelashes come from oil and slave labor. Your top from Uzbekistan. Shorts from China. Jewelry from Indonesia. And your iPhone from Taiwan.
Oh no, not my iPhone!
Steve Jobs may have been a genius, but he couldn't work like a 5-year-old Asian boy can. Even your brawn panties from Bangladesh. Whoa there! Looks like science can go no further. Except for these silicone beauties from DuPont.
Hey.
Oil and slave labor, making the Western world beautiful.
Target is proud to announce the grand opening of 124 locations across Canada. You'll be amazed at what's happened to your old Zeller store. We've painted it red. Exact same selection, exact same prices, but now with a bold, new, redder theme. You'll find it exciting and fresh, yet strangely familiar. Bev is still working the cash, but with a new logo on her smock. So check out your new Target store, almost exactly like your old Zeller store, but now red and American. Yee-haw!